Throughout this course, we'll be using the ideas and the vocabulary of the classical Greeks, and above all, the philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle lived in the 4th century BC. He's one of the most influential political thinkers, political philosophers of all time. And throughout the course, we'll be using his vocabulary, the Greek vocabulary. And in fact, it's inescapable. Our language and our concepts of justice are so deeply suffused with the Greek influence that you can't escape it. It's everywhere around us in our politics. In fact, our very word politics comes from the Greek polis, which means the city-state, like Athens or Sparta. Those are city-states. And those are the unit of Greek community, of Greek political life. And politics means the things of the polis. It means the things that any community living together has to settle. And so our vocabulary, words like democracy, words like tyranny, words like philosophy, are Greek. They come from Greek roots. And that's indicative of the influence of Greek philosophy. And nobody's been so influential as Aristotle. And so to launch us on our discussion about justice, it would be helpful if we have some shared vocabulary. And so we'll learn from Aristotle the basic categories of justice. Aristotle's political philosophy is preserved principally in 2 of his most influential works, a work that's called The Politics, and a work that's called the Nicomachean Ethics. Both ethics and politics are Greek words. And in fact, Aristotle's most extended discussion of the nature and purpose of justice is preserved in the Nicomachean Ethics. And there Aristotle says something that's actually very profound and very useful as we have a conversation about justice. He says that there are essentially 3 domains, 3 areas, 3 types of justice: corrective, distributive, and transactional. And it'd be helpful if we define those categories of justice. First, corrective justice. Well, this is what we mean when we say the correctional system, or we even say the justice system, the system of police and courts and judges and prosecutors and jails that deal with crime. Aristotle says when a human injures another human, involuntary victim, that is a matter for corrective justice. And every society must grapple with how it will administer, how it will deal with the problem of corrective justice, because humans are flawed creatures and they will injure one another. And so societies must set up some system effectively to correct wrongs that have been done. And so every day in our society, in every county across this country, there is a justice system at work deciding hard questions of corrective justice. And we'll talk about the kinds of principles, the kinds of problems that arise when a society must decide how to correct wrongs that have been done. What is the proper role of punishment? What's the proper level of punishment? And Aristotle begins to help us think about a proper amount of punishment, of corrective punishment, being a punishment that fits the crime. And we'll talk about what that means. Aristotle says distributive justice is a second fundamental domain of justice. And in fact, in some ways, it's the most fundamental problem of justice. Whether we realize it or not, almost all of our major political debates, whether it's the taxation system or the healthcare reform or education funding, all are fundamentally questions of distributive justice. Distributive justice, Aristotle says, comes from the fact that there are certain things, especially 2 things, honor and property, which are finite. They exist only to a certain extent, and any society has to decide how will these finite goods be distributed. Let me give you an example. Honor. It's not necessarily intuitive that it's finite, but in fact it is. Take, for instance, the OU women's softball team. Recently won the national championship. With that national championship comes a trophy, which is a symbol of honor. Comes parades and celebrations and the lifelong honor of being a national champion. That's a finite good. Imagine the alternative scenario that after the game is over and one team wins, the officials announce that nevertheless, both teams are champions. Now, this would totally fundamentally undermine the very point of being a champion. In other words, it would remove the honor. If both of the teams were given the honor, then it really ceases to be an honor at all. By its very nature, it's a finite good. Now, in the case of sporting events, it's actually quite obvious how you distribute honors because there are very clearly established rules and the victor gets the honors. But in a society, and with other kinds of goods, it actually becomes more complicated quite quickly. And property is the perennial, the persistent problem of human justice. In all societies, the distribution of property, always finite, something that people always want more of, raises fundamental questions. And so throughout this class, we'll be asking, what is the proper way to distribute property in a society? There are fundamentally different ways, different principles, different reasons, and we'll explore those across this class. Finally, Aristotle's third category, what we will call transactional justice. Aristotle says that human societies have various kinds of exchanges. And in fact, exchanges are fundamental to our way of life. We don't even think about them. They're so fundamentally, they're ubiquitous around us everywhere. People make exchanges. And Aristotle says that for an exchange to be just, the value of the goods exchanged must be equal. That if you're going to give everyone what they're due, then in any transaction, the value of the things that are transacted have to be equal for it to be a just exchange. Aristotle says that this is true even where it's a voluntary transaction. And in fact, we can already begin to see that this will raise fundamental and perennial questions about the very nature of transactional justice. Let me illustrate it with an example. Imagine that there are two little boys, brothers. One's 4 years old and one's 10 years old. And for their birthdays, their parents get them Mickey Mantle rookie cards, very valuable baseball card. It's worth thousands of dollars. One day, the boys are having ice cream, and the older brother says to the younger brother, I will give you this delicious chocolate ice cream cone if you will just give me that little piece of paper, that Mickey Mantle rookie card. And the 4-year-old, looking at the delicious ice cream starting to melt, agrees to the transaction and makes the trade. He gives his brother the rookie card and eats the ice cream. Well, now imagine you're the mother. Inevitably, about an hour later, the ice cream has worn off, and the younger son begins to regret trading away that little rookie card. And so he comes to his mother and says, this is a grave injustice that has to be rectified. I did not exchange something of equal value for that rookie card. And the mother is then faced, and imagine you're in this situation. You have two different principles at stake, two different claims about what the nature of transactional justice is. What does the older brother say? It was a fair transaction, fair and square. He voluntarily agreed to it. Now he has to live with the consequences. The younger brother says, but this was clearly an exchange of goods of unequal value. It's unfair. He got my rookie card and all I got was ice cream. The mother has to decide this question, and it raises fundamental questions about what justice is. And as we'll see when we turn away from examples like baseball cards and ice cream, it raises profoundly difficult questions that we, in fact, face in our society all around us. So, throughout this class, we'll be exploring these three domains of justice: corrective, distributive, and transactional, that go back to Aristotle's systematic thinking about the nature of justice.